Say Fall River has been turbulent, I think would be an understatement.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
You got to admit that Jazel Correa is he's built of something. I mean, he's got some chutzpah, I think is the word that you could use, and now suggesting that he's going to temporarily step away, meaning kind of leave early, take his salary, and do some social work. If I gleaned all of it from the press conference correctly. The mayor is welcome to come here and explain his new lease on life or his exit stage left, whichever you prefer, anytime he would like. But in the meantime, perhaps there will be some stability in Fall River with the remaining candidate who ousted the incumbent mayor pretty easily in the primary race for mayor. Paul Coogan, a school committee member and former administrator at Durfee High School, is here this evening to talk about his campaign, but also the situation as it exists. So he'll be here in just a moment. Glad to have you aboard. Thanks for tuning in on this blustery Wednesday evening, right? Hold on to your hats. In the meantime, we got to check to see a little bit about that debate last night. I'm tired of seeing 10 candidates already. So I'm not watching anymore until they get down to 6. Well, I probably am lying, but it feels like I want to. Here's the network's coverage.
Last night's debate started with one thing all 12 candidates agreed upon.
The impeachment must go forward.
Donald Trump needs to be held accountable.
Former Vice President Joe Biden defended himself and his son from President Trump's insistence they be investigated by foreign countries.
He's going after me because he knows if I get the nomination, I will beat him like a drum.
The debate then turned to Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, who's been rising in the polls.
The difference between a plan and a pipe dream is something that you can actually get done.
Warren took heat for her Medicare for All plan.
Will you raise taxes on the middle class to pay for it, yes or no?
So I have made clear what my principles are here.
A yes or no question that didn't get a yes or no answer.
But said she's the best candidate for the general election.
I will outwork, outorganize, and outlast anyone, and that includes Donald Trump, Mike Pence, or whoever the Republicans get stuck with.
With 12 people on stage here in Ohio, last night's debate was the largest in modern history. It also featured 3 candidates over the age of 70.
We know that the most unhealthy person running for the presidency in 2020 is Donald Trump.
78-year-old Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders said he's up for a vigorous campaign even after suffering a heart attack 2 weeks ago.
And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'm so happy to be back here with you this evening.
4 of the 12 candidates have not qualified for next month's debate in Georgia.
You know, Elizabeth Warren was under a little pressure because now she allegedly leads in the polls. What was interesting, there was a moment when Joe Biden reminded her that some key legislation that she had previously shoved through was supported by him. This is when before she was a senator, some advocacy legislation, and Joe was like, I got that through, and she turned to the audience and said, I want to thank the president for, meaning Obama, for having helped me with that, and anybody else that might have helped along the way. And it was a kind of a crass moment, to be honest with you. And I know that the female candidates are, I think, unfairly judged for their aggressive disposition, and I won't do that with Elizabeth Warren. But crass is crass, and mean is mean, and I think she's got to be careful about that. Feisty is one thing, ferocious is another, but nasty, there's a long way to go in this race. But really, they need to get this thing down to 5 or 6. Can they just talk amongst themselves and have a little discussion about that? In the meantime, big doings in Providence with the state's final order now in place to take the education system over. Angelica Infante Green, the commissioner, put her final stamp on the situation, effective November 1st. Here is Eyewitness News coverage.
It's not poof. you know, the next day there's a whole new system in place. That's not how this is going to work.
The state of Rhode Island's takeover of Providence Public Schools is officially starting November 1st. The long-term plan set for 5 years with the option to extend.
We are making a commitment of not giving back the school system until the school system is in a very stable place.
Education Commissioner Angelica Infante Green issued her final order for the takeover on Tuesday. She'll have control of the school district's budget, all its employees, and its programs. Much of the turnaround plan will be formed in the coming months, but Infante Green told us some of her plans. They include an advisory board made up of parents, a possible reorganization of the schools to be K through 8, and potentially closing schools that are in poor condition, though she didn't say which ones.
We probably will have to close a couple of the school buildings. Some of these buildings really should not have children in them in the present condition that they're in. That's the reality.
Infante Green has been interviewing potential superintendents for weeks and says she's in negotiations with the final candidate. She would not yet say who the person is, but did say they would be coming from out of state.
The one challenge I would offer to the commissioner, who I am bullish on, I think she's really got her act together, is this notion that there are buildings with children in them and children really shouldn't be in them. Okay, if buildings are such that children shouldn't be in them, then children shouldn't be in them. Does it make any sense to you? The North Providence mayor has the Maryville building that is empty and waiting to be used by somebody, which is just off Charles Street, just over the city line. There are other communities that have other facilities that could be used for housing and educating the kids. If buildings are so, this is the thing that was driving me crazy from the beginning, and the mayor wanted to own this whole thing, right? I wouldn't put it past the commissioner to, when she gets a hold of this sucker come November 1st, to actually make a move on some of those buildings ASAP and transfer kids, if necessary, out of town. Alorza has stunk the joint out on the leadership on this thing. And one of the things that you should note, by the way, for this 3 to 5 year move, the plan is now 5 years instead of 3 years. For the turnaround. One of the reasons that's happening is to super serve this mayor who has full intention to run for governor. And as long as there's no 3-year end game to this project where perhaps it falls short, he doesn't have to answer for it because he no longer owns it come 2022 November. Follow that? That's kind of a concession I think the state is making. And by the way, it's going to take a while to turn that school system around. It doesn't happen like that. But it still goes up my craw and should go up your craw that if there are buildings that should not be housing students, then there are buildings that should not be housing students. I'm not confused by that, nor should anybody else be. All right. What has been confusing is the day-to-day politics of Fall River from time to time. Here it is the last one. The indicted mayor to step aside and drop out of the race, at least for now. I mean, the drama, right, Paul?
Absolutely.
The drama kind of continues. Paul Coogan is a 4-year school committee member and mayoral candidate. You bested the incumbent mayor pretty readily, easily in the primary, so congratulations on that.
Thank you again.
Good for you. You're a longtime educator, a school committee member, and so I'm sure you've got a lot of perspective on the education system. Well, you know what's interesting about education in Massachusetts? Mayors sit on school committee boards.
The mayor and 4 is the chairman.
Right. Don't you think that's good synergy?
It is good synergy. I mean, it depends on the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a lousy mayor, you got a lousy chairman. If you got a good mayor, then you got a good chairman. It's just with like the members of the committee. You want good people in good spots.
Yeah, but I'd like to see Rhode Island employ that model where the connectivity between city government and school governance, comes together. There's a symbiotic.
One team.
By nature, there's a symbiotism that comes with that, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We worked closely with the mayor when he first got elected, but that kind of didn't continue on. But it's a good model. I have no problem with it. I would love to be the chairman of the school committee.
Yeah, which means you'd love to be the mayor. All right, why don't we do this? We're going to come back and we'll talk about what's happened, some of the drama, and then we'll get to some of the policies and vision that Paul has for the city of Fall River. Stay with us. Oh, I see. I see. Anita said, fix your hair. Listen, if you guys watch this show for my hair, then you got problems. That's all I got to say. I got a little alfalfa thing going on there. Anyway, listen, they got a lot going on in Fall River. Here was the latest this week.
Today is not goodbye.
Embattled Fall River Mayor Jazel Correa stepping aside.
I'm here today to officially announce my decision to forgo my campaign for re-election as the mayor of Fall River and take a temporary absence from my responsibilities as the mayor of the city.
The announcement comes just over a year after the 27-year-old's initial arrest on federal fraud charges and a month after a second arrest on extortion. He maintains his innocence.
Today's announcement provides the city of Fall River an opportunity to build on the successes and accomplishments of my administration without any distraction.
Correa submitted a letter to the City Council Tuesday saying he will be temporarily absent from his position and unable to perform the duties of his office. As of 4 o'clock, handing over the reins to City Council President Cliff Ponte.
We could have talked about when it happened, should it have happened sooner, but it happened now. And now at this point, we owe it to the community, we owe it to the department heads, we owe it to the city administration that we move past this collectively as a community. Because that's what people deserve right now.
As acting mayor, Ponte will still earn his city councilor salary of roughly $16,000 a year, while Correa will continue to collect his more than $118,000 a year pay.
Can you talk about the legality, the process of him being able to say he's unable to perform his duties but is still able to earn his salary?
That's what the charter says. The unable is you're not going to be able to come to the office. And he's not going to come to the office.
After his announcement Tuesday, the mayor refused to take any questions.
Turn it in? He turned his car in? He did? Okay, good. Well, but what is this unable stuff? Now, I'm sure you probably don't want to get into this mix too much, but this is outrageous. It's outrageous that he's going to draw down on his salary while he just takes a powder on this whole thing.
Absolutely.
Right?
I've called for him to resign when we ran in the recall. I called for him to resign now. Then it would be a clean break. But no, he's taken a temporary leave, self-assigned. I don't know how that works either, but that's where we are. Last week he fought the council when they tried to move him, and this week he uses the same verbiage to get himself out. So that's what Fall River's doing right now.
All right. You're here to talk about you, but characterize what the last few years have been with the mess that the mayor is in, the jackpot that he's in personally.
Well, it's dominated the news cycle. It's dominated the gossip in the coffee shops. It just goes on and on and on. And then what you read in the papers or what you see is part of it, but the rumors go everywhere else after that. And it's just a constant flood of things that are negative about the administration of the city of Fall River.
I think the guy's done some good things, though. He's a really sharp kid. I mean, he's still a kid. He's 27, 28 years old. He reminds me, and I've said this, in his presence. He reminds me. It's kind of like the movie Big. It's the inverted of that. Remember when Tom Hanks, took over the little kid's body? I mean, he's got a very adult presence in a very young person's, physical persona. And I think he has some real skill sets and talent. What went awry, or what's built in there, is a mystery. But he's done some good work, hasn't he?
He has done some good work. But what happened was he took all the skills that you just described and put them to the dark side. He didn't use them. I mean, if he was working for Apple or Mercedes-Benz, he'd be probably making more money than he was extorting from these people. But he didn't. He went to something that was
allegedly.
Well, allegedly is fine. But again, he did that, and he didn't put his skills to use the way he should have. He did some things he shouldn't have done, and he got himself into these jams.
What is the message that you're bringing here in terms of clearing the air or removing the cloud? Is that part of your message?
Absolutely. I think if people have seen me in Fall River for the last 4 years, well, for the last 30 years with the school, You deal with teenagers every day in an urban high school, and you have to be a straight shooter. Because if you're a con man or you're a flim-flam artist, they can see through you in 30 seconds, and they treat you just like that. You got to be straight up front, even when you disagree with them, and listen, and they will listen to you, and they'll respect you. It's the same thing with the citizens in Fall River. It's the same thing with me. If someone's straight with me, even if it's something I don't want to hear, I'd much rather hear it. I don't want anything brushed aside. I think the citizens in Fall River deserve some fresh air on the 6th floor. They need someone that's not willing to walk down the street and have a coffee with them. Meet with the regular elected officials all the time and have coffee. Something that doesn't happen now. We don't talk other than when the day of a meeting. That's what happens. We meet together and we go our separate ways.
You know, the turbulence that the city has had with multiple administrations in the recent past is interesting. In the meantime, you know, it used to be the brunt of a lot of jokes. There's a lot of good things happening in the city and in the region. I mean, it has the potential, I think, of becoming, you know, a real comeback zone, don't you think?
Oh, it's going to be a real comeback zone. If I'm elected mayor on the 5th, look at our schools. I just watched your piece on the Providence school system, and you were commenting on the buildings. I can take you right now, Dan, to any school in Fall River, other than Durfee, which is now being built, and you'll see a clean, orderly building. Most of them are brand new. The ones that are old, Watson and Tansy, are being renovated. New windows, new roofs, new air conditioning, and we're bringing up our physical plant to a grade A standard. Our problem there is obviously the scores. We're struggling in some schools with that, but that's a battle statewide. If you look at all the gateway cities, they're in the same lump we're in. We're getting out of that lump. Our scores are going to start to improve. We had a tremendous presentation last night from administration on how they're going to tackle this. The infusion of money the state just gave us is breathtaking. I know, watching your Providence piece, I said if Providence got a shot in the arm like that, they'd be able to turn some schools around very quickly too. And Fall River got the shot in the arm, and we're going to take advantage of it.
What is the economic vision for the city right now?
Well, the economic vision for the city is there's still 90 acres up in the industrial park. There's still some technology companies. There's economic plans on the waterfront, on downtown, small mom and pop type operations, get some foot traffic downtown, some market rate housing downtown. That's what Fall River needs. There are companies that have approached me now that are willing to work with us if we're elected, that want to come to Fall River. We have one of the best sources of
companies that are unknown to the rest of the community?
Some are. Some are people that are already there saying, hey, listen, I want to bring over this person. He supplies us with eyeglass rims. Where can we help him get located? But they don't want to get involved right now because of the situation in the city and how unsteady it is.
You think this controversy has really held the place back?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm with you on that part of it. The mayor's a young man. He made a mistake. I worked with young people my whole life. He's going to be okay if he works his way out of it. No matter what it is, he can survive this. But he's got to come clean, address it, and get on with his life. That's how you deal with problems.
That empathy that you're expressing for him, I'm not sure he feels it in return.
No, he doesn't. And that's one of his weaknesses. He doesn't see things through other people's eyes. When you work with teenagers for a long time, you have to look through their eyes. What is that kid seeing across the desk right now? What's the message I'm sending him? And that's how you deal with people. The message you give out, you dealt with it last year with me when he fired us from the building committee meeting the day after the election. I mean, I don't mind getting fired, but he can't even give us 12 hours to clear our heads, and two of us are lopped off there. And I was like, I even said to him when he called me, what are you doing? Think about what you're doing. Just think about what you're doing. He got a ton of negative press on it.
So in the meantime, the breath of fresh air that I'm sure that you want to offer City Hall the point of view is not shared, and now there's a potential handful of write-in candidates that are going to be in this race. We'll talk about that in our final segment. Stay with us. Be right back. So yeah, this popped up yesterday. Kathy Ann Viveris is launching a 6th bid for mayor. That would be 6 if you're scoring at home with a write-in candidacy. She is an administrator in the, she's the city administrator, works for the Correa administration. she and others. Reportedly, the mayor would like to see a handful of write-in candidates. Someone needs to teach them a political lesson. First of all, write-in candidacies are brutal. In Massachusetts, they call them sticker campaigns because you can get a sticker and you can put it on the ballot, right? First of all, one would be brutally hard, never mind a handful. But he believes that your candidacy takes Fall River back to the old bad ways. What are the old bad ways?
I'm not sure. He has used that a number of times on me. We're going to take Fall River back. And my answer to him in the first debate was we are going to take Fall River back to a time when the mayor was respected, when there was an honest climate in the government center, and when people were straight up truthful with each other, and they could work with other elected officials. Fall River needs supports all over the place, federal, state, city council. We have to work together. And I do want to take it back to that kind of time. Now, if the other backs he's referring to, I don't know what they are. He creates these straw men and he runs with them till he grinds them to pulpweed. My position is we are going to put an honest government back in the 6th floor.
You bested him more than 2-1, right, in the primary, and I'm guessing, and of course these are playoffs in Massachusetts. The primaries come down from the field to 2 candidates. So with him out, I mean, these write-in candidacies, I don't care how well organized they are. I've seen too many elections. They are fledgling at best. By the way, Kathy Ann Viveros can come here and talk to us at any time if she'd like to about her candidacy. But you got to be careful not to take the pedal off.
Oh no, we were going door to door this morning.
Because it seems to me that one of the things that he might be doing in leaving is to work full-time against you while not being the candidate that's running. I mean, I'm not born yesterday.
I think you're on to something, Dan.
I'm not born yesterday.
I'm not either. And
right?
And
he's going to collect a salary while he's doing it.
Correct. So we're paying him to run against me. I know.
Yeah.
Welcome to America.
Right? And then that doesn't make any sense.
No, not to most people, but
no.
That's what we're dealing with, and that's.
So how do you play that? You gotta are you gonna keep your eye on him, or are you just gonna just stay tunnel visioned on what it is that you want to?
I never kept my eye on him when we were campaigning. We have our message, and we go. As I said this morning, we were doing a drop in the North End, and we get a crew of people, 3, sometimes 7, 8, go out and knock on doors and say, "This is why Paul Coogan's best for the job as mayor of Fall River." You just send your message out. Tonight there's like 2 or 3 events we'll be hitting, a neighborhood meeting, a little fundraiser for one of the animal rights groups, and we just keep moving, and we will not stop till November 5th.
So what is your, give me your 30-second sell when you're in the diner and someone says, Paul, why do you really want to be the mayor? You want to be the mayor because?
Because I want people to have confidence in the government of Fall River, which they do not have right now. I want a clean city. I want a safe city, and I want an economically sound city. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, but I'm going to be able to do basic things. I look at some of the streets, repairs or litter. Financially, I want to get in there. I've already talked to people in the state auditor's office. They're going to come in and help us with a review of the books, and I want to make sure people feel safe. There are things we can do in Fall River that work across the country that'll make it a better place to live.
And having this experience on the school side is a plus.
Tremendous. I mean, you work in a school with 2,200 kids every day.
And the majority of your taxpayer money is going to the schools.
Absolutely.
Right?
We're more than half of the budget. We do a line item budget every year. People say, well, he doesn't have any experience with fiscal matters. We do a budget every year, line by line.
All right, well, feel free to come back before the election. Good luck to you, and you know, keep your eye on the prize, right?
We will, and thanks for having us on.
Good luck.
Appreciate it.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Final word when we come back. We shall cruise back to some more education issues in Rhode Island tomorrow on the broadcast. Fall River kind of crazy. Seems to be that Paul Coogan's candidacy and seemingly eventual mayoralty might just be a steady hand. One day at a time, though. You know. All right. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 until 6 on WPRO and back here tomorrow night. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.